My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Best Quality Vacuum. It is the Duckfeed podcast series about the Vince Gilliverse. So Breaking Bad, El Camino, and Better Call Saul. Good.
Yeah. And we have a heartbreaker on our hands, Gary. We're talking about Phoenix.
Yeah. Widely considered one of the best episodes of this show.
Mm-hmm.
Very sad.
Yeah.
Made me super sad watching it again, even though I've seen it a bunch of times.
Yeah. Even knowing what's coming. Like it's man, the depiction of when a mind gets into rationalization mode.
Yes.
You know, it's real grim, and that can remind you of a bunch of stuff. You do not need to know somebody who is addictive to have seen this kind of behavior in play.
Yeah.
And just it's even more tragic when you know what's coming, when you can see all of the little off ramps that are provided until the responsibility ultimately falls on Walt.
Yeah. I love that it is a really complicated knot.
Yeah.
The ethics of this, there are a lot of, part of the fun of Breaking Bad or any show that involves moral crapulence in a general sense is like having fun with ethics.
Yeah.
Like you watch this and you're like, well, yeah, from like a utilitarian standpoint, this. And for, from this kind of standpoint, this, and this, it's very similar. It's this season's version of Killing Emilio, which was an interesting ethical concern. It's just, they're doing it with this much more history and this kind of better chops. I hear it's a fascinating situation. That forms the crux of this episode. Yeah, with lots of different arguments, and people will have strong feelings about it and everything. But I think it is, and they talk about this on the podcast. One of the strengths of this is that like there's no necessary slam dunk right or wrong to this, at least to my mind. Like you can make an argument in multiple different directions for this, and I really love that about it. It's fun to think about. Yeah, in addition to being a joy to watch.
Yeah, there are. It sounds like I'm justifying it, but even down to, you can agree Walt did not do a good thing, but like, I don't know, what was his reason for deciding to not act? Right.
Yeah, it's a good reason. I'm justifying. It can be justified and still awful. That's what justification is.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, from this, it's a trade-off.
Yeah.
Like, It is, it falls down in the face of, and people who imagine somebody who doesn't know the show who's listening to this, which is a bad idea.
I'd recommend you not.
Yeah, you don't do that, but you're probably just like, what the fuck happens? And you're going to be very disappointed when you actually find out, given how much buildup. But it is a real wham kind of moment. And we should save some of the going back and forth about the thinking about it for the actual scene.
Yeah. And also just want to kind of re-put a stake in the ground. Like, I'm not interested in moralizing about this too much, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not like a big part of taking the show apart is to, yes, we need to find who to condemn here. No, it can just, it can be a show about terrible people. That's okay.
Yeah. I'm not trying to Tumblr Puritan of this stuff or stick up for, I don't think Walter White is a good person by any means,
no.
And talking about his decision is not endorsement, but like, it sucks that we live in a world where media literacy is such that we have to clarify that.
Yeah.
Like we spent an entire, human history talking about morally complicated characters with the understanding that like, no, you're not supposed to hand it to this person.
Yeah.
They're just interesting to talk about.
Hand it to King David. Come on.
Yeah. And now it's just a question of, do you need to hand it?
Yeah.
Like the Tumblr Puritan movement has completely turned everything into, shall I hand it or not?
Yes, this can only be a good show if I can morally sign off on every action taken.
Yeah, and like I enjoy. Sometimes I am like, it's interesting that I can hand it to this person. I do think about whether I can hand it. Yeah. But it's not the only thing I think about. And it's like you don't have to hand it to Walter White, but there's a neutral, like whatever the difference is between a devil and an angel, whatever the middle ground is.
Steve.
There's Steve's on one shoulder saying like, yeah, hand it to him. And then John's on the other shoulder being like, don't hand it to him. And it's interesting to hear him talk.
Yeah.
Interesting arguments. Like, yeah, I'm sick of capitulating to these terrorists. I don't know, man. I'm gonna start acting like art exists as it always has. For all of humanity, and we don't actually have to do that.
Huh? Strange. You watch Breaking Bad, yet you claim to be against all these things. Yeah.
You claim to hate airplane crashes, and yet you do a podcast about Breaking Bad. This episode was directed by Colin Buxey and written by John Sheben, and originally aired on May 24th, 2009.
Yeah. And this picks off immediately after a cliffhanger. Walt has decided to deliver the drugs to Gus to keep that door from closing, even when he knows that his wife is in labor, giving birth to his daughter, Holly.
Yes. And we got a brand new character, Holly. Holly, named after Vince Gilligan's partner, Holly Rice. It is a cute baby that is a prop.
Yep.
For the rest of the series. New prop alert. New prop dropped.
It is very funny to see people carrying and passing around what is very obviously a baby doll.
Yeah, it's like a Ludum Dare game. Like, don't spike the baby or something like that. Like, it is just entirely about what this thing represents. And that's kind of how babies are. They don't have personalities and stuff yet. Like they just,
Gary said that, I didn't say it. So
yeah, they represent, they grow into people. Like we're not expecting Holly to be a character.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to Holly's spinoff where she starts to reckon with her upbringing. God.
I can imagine Holly, the college years. So the rest of the episode is the climax of the Jesse and Jane storyline. The consequences of their drug abuse. This is, we get a lot more John Delancey, and her dad wants to have her go to rehab, and we get Jane seeing Jesse's money as a way out. So we get some Jane versus Walt stuff.
Yeah. Kind of the B plot in this that more kind of serves as a just a device to get money into Walt's hands is Flynn has set up this very cute donation site, SaveWalterWhite.com.
How quaint is it when everyone's like, they even have PayPal and everything.
Yup.
Nonstop. Like, hey, Lewis helped me set up PayPal. Look at him. He's already even got PayPal and everything. Living the dream.
I love this site. You can still go to it. It is the most GeoCities ass looking thing.
It's super charming. The really, pretty good podcast this episode. And a little bit of the stuff that I want in terms of production value, which is always deleted scenes or drafts. The origin of this idea is fascinating. They were going to bring back Skylar's eBay stuff and have Walt buy things from her for inflated prices and then have them shipped somewhere and then get rid of them. And that was how he's going to launder money. And they were like, well, that's kind of stupid. And then that's how they came to this.
Yeah.
Which is a good money laundering plot, I think.
It's a good plot. Don't know if it holds up with, KYC, know your client kind of stuff. Yeah. Whatever, PayPal. I'm sure they probably could sniff that out, but like in
the early days, maybe.
Yeah.
Like when PayPal was the Wild West and was limited to one person, the first person in Albuquerque to get it is Walt Jr. But
but it serves a good purpose, and I like the lines and scenes kind of around Walt's hangups about this.
Oh yeah,
just a weeping open sore of pride.
Yeah, just a grotesque man.
Yeah,
just a and emphasis on man, like masculinity, patriarchal attitudes.
Yeah,
breadwinner father shit that is all nonsense, and if you should divest yourself of it.
Yes.
As best you can.
Yeah.
It's silly. It's not the 50s.
Any other stuff from the podcast that you want to get to?
Like in general, there was a lot of the praise stuff that usually happens. That was my favorite detail about it. The other thing is, and this is not trivia, it was just cute, is that Vince Gilligan and John Sheehan, they work together on X-Files, and they have a really cute dynamic.
Okay.
They are good friends, and they make each other laugh a
Nice.
lot. So it was really fun to hear.
Yeah.
You know, apparently John Sheehan wasn't available during season 1 of this, but since they worked together on X-Files, they really wanted to get, he wanted to get him on the air. So he's very happy to have him back. And he did this big standout episode.
Yeah.
Real good to have him. But him recruiting his old friends. The other thing that was interesting is he found out on the X-Files, because the X-Files is such a bigger show, it had so much more money. People used to be paid just to come up with ideas. Like you would go, as opposed to this, where it sounds like when you listen to the stories of the writer's room for Breaking Bad, it's like a nightmare. It's like they work 14 hours a day.
Oh yeah.
7 days a week in the writer's room. Like they never leave. And they're constantly working on it. Whereas in X-Files, they're like, hey, go take the weekend and come up with like 4 ideas, and then they would come back and be like, I don't know, Marfa lights. And they'd be like, okay, that's pretty cool. Do something with that. And then they would go back and have time to write it. And it sounds like a real paradise.
Yeah.
So
I'm positive that this exists in some form or fashion. And it's such a huge show that I imagine it'd be ridiculous. But to look at X-Files alum just from the like direction and writing, kind of stable that they had, and kind of trace almost a family tree, like how much excellent shit or even terrible shit kind of can't, like what resulted from people either getting their starts or meeting people on the X-Files.
It's the Wolf Parade of TV shows. Like, it is absolutely a super group.
Yeah.
And you can see we're coming up on it and me and Liv's watch the first Vince Gilligan episode, which is Push. Which is an excellent episode of that show. I remember it from when I was young. Yeah. So it's going to be very fun to trace that talent down there. And now I know to look for John Sheehan as well.
Yeah.
And what is it? The Final Destination. We just did that for Unfillable.
Oh gosh.
David Wong.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. I might be wrong about that, but I think that's what it is. Yeah. It's going to be fun to look at that as well. And kind of do that genealogy. Yeah. So
let's get into it. Let's pick back up where the action. Wrong. Since we're promoting other
mood a little bit.
Since we're promoting other stuff on an adaptation game, we talked about the Mario movie, which is fine.
Yeah. If you want to hear two podcasters say it's fine. There you go. Saved you a click. It's a funny episode.
Yeah.
I like the decision here where we don't see the deal.
Right.
We neither see the deal nor the birth. This is also something they brought up in the podcast because they just like, we've seen this so many times on TV. Like both these scenes, they're like, oh, it writes itself. And then they stopped and were like, that's maybe a problem. And I love that decision.
Yeah.
Walt's tearing ass driving down to this abandoned hotel. You think maybe he's going for the deal.
Yeah.
Trying to get there, but he's just trying to park swing call Skylar here.
Yeah. Calling and he wants to lie about why he's late. Like, oh, yeah, it's brake lights all the way back. Marie answers, and we only get one side of the conversation. Oh, thank God. Is she beautiful?
That's very heartbreaking.
Oh, yeah.
And he, like, Bryan Cranston fucking absolutely kills it in this episode left and right.
Yeah.
Just like watching the moment of the realization, him swinging back and forth between the pride and the action he's done and the like deep regret and the tragedy.
Yeah. And it's such a hollow regret too, because around both of these things, the birth of his daughter and the death of somebody else, he makes a decision and then weeps over the consequence of it.
Yeah. I never think of that as hollow. I think that, like, I understand what you mean. Like, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you, but like I have felt, the emotion you feel after a choice you make is real.
Yeah.
So like sometimes somebody will be like, well, you can't feel bad about it. It's your own damn fault. And I'm like, that's why I feel bad about it. Like that's why I'm crying. It's not a fake emotion. It's the same thing like when you're hungover, you are sick, even though it's your own fault.
Yeah.
You know?
So hollow's the wrong word for it. I would say laden.
Yeah, it's nuance. It adds a wrinkle to it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
You know, and it does interfere with sympathy. You know, sympathy as like if sympathy is the primary drive of watching somebody hurt. But if you're just thinking of it in terms, like I find it very relatable.
Yes.
To make a decision, regret it, and just absolutely be devastated by something you chose to do.
Yeah.
You know, and to me, that makes it worse as opposed to something that just happens to you, which garners more sympathy, but is weather.
Yes.
You know, you have no control over that.
Yeah. But, you know, just lies again about the traffic, you know, today of all days, right?
Yeah.
You know, just expressing his frustration at this, you know, horrible coincidence, right? Nobody could have planned for this.
Yep. He makes the drop, rushes over to the hospital, checks in to find where Skylar is, and she's with the baby. And Skylar's in good spirits.
Yeah.
You know, she gives him Holly. You know, and this is a great little bit of camera work here. It pans over. He's very happy. You know, we and him have not noticed that Ted is standing there.
Yep. The camera just dollies left, and then suddenly they're standing in the corner. They say at this time, every full moon, Christopher Cousins appears in that corner.
Hey, Vince, how about a spinoff? He just, you know, congratulations, Walt. Like, he's perfectly gracious and gentlemanly.
Yeah.
You know?
But this is this is not welcome to Walt.
Yeah, twisting the knife for Walt.
Yeah.
You know, Ted drove her to the hospital because the baby was on rails. She says it was a rail baby. She thought Ted was gonna have to pull over and deliver the baby, and Walt's like, well, I'm glad it didn't come to that. And it's obviously like you don't want that anyway because that's much less safe. You know, and everything. But also, he just didn't want Ted to be wrist deep in his wife.
Yeah, for Ted to be the hero of this story, right?
Yeah. Either, you know, just like absolutely the hero, something that he wasn't willing to do, but by rights, if anyone was going to do it, it should have been him. You know, Ted excused himself again. Ted, I love that Ted's not really a villain in this show. Kisses Skylar on the cheek. Walt kind of thanks, Ted, as he leaves. And Skylar says, "I wish you were here." You know, Walt, and Walt can't respond to this.
Right.
You know, he doesn't have an answer. She sends Walt out to get her overnight bag, which he forgot. And when he gets there, he unloads his duffel bag full of 1.2 mil. That's his quote.
Yeah.
And so you just get to see a whole lot of money. It's the first giganto stack of money our characters have had.
This is where he starts having to weigh it to count it.
Yes. And we're going to escalate this as the series goes on.
Right.
Yeah.
So cut over to Jesse and Jane's place. The phone rings and wakes Jane up. It's her dad. And, you know, he's wondering where she's at. You know, like, oh, I overslept, you know, et cetera.
I'm in the shower. Or I was in the shower. I overslept.
Right. Yeah. And as she gets up to leave, she notices the panel on the door busted away. Says, hey, someone broke in. Just kind of real lackadaisically.
It's interesting. Jane. So this is a detail that you can pick up from watching, but also comes up in the podcast that like, you know, the intent is not to make Jane a villain during any of this.
Right.
She comes off as pretty unlikable at several points.
Yes.
During this, ever since she got into heroin, it didn't improve her personality.
No,
you know, she's not a better person being on heroin. So I think she comes off as kind of crappy, a little crappier than maybe they intended.
Yeah.
For her, you know,
it's a pretty quick swing to Lady Macbeth once she hears about the money.
Yes. It's zero to Lady Macbeth. Yeah. You know, she says he broke in. Jesse gets up, starts looking around and freaks the fuck out. He sees the mess in the kitchen, sees the meth is gone. Yeah. He thinks, you know, somebody came in and just knew exactly where it was. Jane was late for a Narconon meeting. And she's saying they're fidgeting with her chip as a guy is talking about making it to his 1 year mark.
Yeah.
His birthday's coming up.
Yeah, you know, and she, I'm reading into this, but it's like, oh, she's hearing about this person reach this huge milestone when she just flushed her 18 months down the toilet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like there's, you know, it's tragic. And she's nervous also because she needs a hit. You know, like she woke up and she is addicted to heroin.
Yeah. Oh, don't forget meth.
Yeah.
She likes to put ice in it too.
Yeah. Yeah. She was a licensed. She is a drug addict,
Yes.
so she is, and we cut to this very tragic scene of her and her dad at a restaurant.
Yeah.
And her dad trying to connect with her,
Mhm.
and it's so obvious something is wrong.
Yes.
There's no amount of oblivious dad
No.
that would not notice that Jane is lying through her teeth.
Yeah, she does the thing that like Walt can sometimes get away with it, but this is a hallmark of, I think, real bad liars in real life is
she oversells it. There's a contrast with it very specifically later, which I want to point out.
Yes. Yeah, but just like he asks, like, oh, like, are you sleeping? And she tells this very long story about, oh, I'm working on this very intricate back piece, and the guy keeps wanting changes. A back piece at the tattoo parlor. She just kind of keeps going on about it.
Yeah.
And she's just like standing on the stage, like turning a dial about, like that says detail and looking to see if people get mad.
Yeah. She's overselling it. She's too quick. With it, with everything. Like, she is a bad liar.
Yes.
And detail is part of a good lie, as we'll find out, but she's not good at it.
Right.
She asks about his job, and he talks about how it's Will Forte's there, and he just keeps crashing planes.
Yeah. He just really trying to impress the daughter from Veep.
Yeah. He brings up they're understaffed. He's doing training on the weekends because they're bringing unqualified people. They don't say what this is just yet.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Are you seeing anyone?" And she goes, "No. Are you?" Again, just kind of like weird paranoid junkie shit. And he's not an idiot. He's like, yeah, well, that Jesse, he seemed to expect an introduction. He picked up on the subtext of that, of that scenario. And she's like, no, he's a tenant, nothing else. He just knows you own the building. Why would I get involved with a tenant? Again, just being so overly defensive, like protest too much. Here.
Just try again when somebody is rationalizing, trying, back solving from just leave me alone, right? Like the more we talk, the more information I kind of pass along to you, the more likelihood there is that you're going to find out and deny me my next fix.
Yep. Yeah. We cut over to the White House. The phone rings and Flynn answers it. He's like, no one's there. Hangs it up. It rings again, and Walt knows what's going on. I love this. Very cute. Like, grabs it and goes, "Beat ya!" And poor oblivious little Flynn is like, "Haha, Dad."
That's such a well observed like dad moment.
He's really good at beating the shit, man. Like he's in top form this episode. So of course this is Jesse. And Walt has to kind of go into the corner to get away from Flynn, and he's just like, "You junkie imbecile, why are you calling this number?" Keep in mind, the last time Walt saw Jesse, he was literally heroined out of his mind.
Yes,
in bed.
Yeah. And Jesse breaks the news. Hey, all of our meth is gone. Like, the person knew exactly where to get it. It was really spooky. We're in trouble here. And he's answered only with silence. He tries to break it by saying, just like yell at me or something. Come on.
That's really well observed. Too. Like, I feel guilty. I need to be punished.
Yeah.
At least a little bit for this. Like, he was looking to be yelled at. He thinks he fucked up.
Yeah.
And Walt just lets him twist in the wind.
Yeah.
Hangs up on him. The scene ends, however, and Jesse sees that he has answering machine messages. So he's going to put it together.
Right.
We have this little scene at the White House at the pool. There, not the White House, but the White's house.
It was very funny when you said the phone rings at the White House and Flynn picks up. I was like, General Flynn.
Yeah. I just wanted Walt Jr. in the house. Yeah. General Flynn's not allowed in the White House anymore.
Nope. For now.
For now. God damn it.
I know, right?
I know. So they're having a party. They're having a celebration. Hank brought Pollos Hermanos for dinner. And Walt, because Skylar's going to breastfeed here, and like Hank's like, Walt gets him away. But I love Marie. Like, it's just a breast, Hank.
Yeah, stop being so provincial.
Provincial. It's a breast. And Walt, they're talking about childproofing the pool and talking about putting up a cover, all these things. He's like, hey, they got these radar things, these sonar things that will tell you if something falls in it.
Yeah.
And he's acting like he's got money because he does. The Schraders offer to pay for it. And he's like, no.
Yeah, no.
And Skylar's like, and Hank even says, well, you got like a money tree in the back growing 50s. You got a printing press. Like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah. And Skylar kind of brings things back to reality, at least as, needs to be maintained, saying, oh, I'm going to be going back to work very soon. Even Flynn's talking about getting a job to help us along. Like,
everybody pitches in. Like, the last thing that happened before this birth subplot was Walt being given this incredible bill for the surgery.
Right.
Or estimate. And you can see Walt's face drop again, this classic masculinity 50s thing when Flynn's getting a job. Like, no son of mine needs to get a job. I killed somebody. I've gone through such shit. Like, it can't be for nothing.
Yeah.
That night, Holly cries and he's awake, when it happens. So he goes to take care of her. And he takes her out to the garage and shows her the money.
You want to see what your daddy did for you?
Yeah. And this is again a really nuanced line. He believes that. He does think he did do it for his family to a degree. At the end of the spoiler, the end of the series, there's a thing where he's like, I did it for myself.
Yeah.
He did it at this point. At the very least, he's doing it for both.
Yeah. At this point, he doesn't think that he has to do any more. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, I'm done. Like, I did this. I went through all this. It was all worth it, though. I'm going to die. My cancer's going to come back and you are going to be fine. At the same time, it's real fucked up.
Yeah.
To like show your infant a bunch of drug money and be like,
but it's also real sad on his part because he can't
tell anyone else.
He can't tell anyone else. Yeah. This is all that he has, is to kind of make this symbolic gesture to something that cannot possibly comprehend anything more than changes in the amount of light and maybe some movement at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. The as an examination of masculine pride, like, I don't know that there's a better character than Walter White. There's so many of these like just very nuanced critiques and sideways looks at classic manness that happens with him.
Yeah.
So we cut over to Walt in chemistry class, and Jesse barges in the classroom. It's barely, things have barely changed here.
Yeah.
And he points out, he's like, I know you took the meth. Like, he's mad at him for letting him twist in the wind.
Right.
And Walt, I think kind of rightly, lays into him.
Yeah.
If you hadn't done this, I wouldn't have missed the fucking birth of my daughter. Junkie fuck up.
Yeah. We just, he makes a point. We were on call, right? Yeah. There's nothing, there is no such thing as a day off for you.
Yes.
Yeah. At least not until we get the bag. Right.
Yep. And Jesse's just like, whatever, where's the money? And Walt says, and this is, interesting, like morally, like ethically, if you had that money, you'd be dead within a week. I'm not going to give it to you. Jesse says, no, I'm clean. I don't like heroin. I'm meth. I can take or leave. Meth, that famous drug people can take or leave.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've told you this before. There was a guy, a weird art kid in my high school, who did a bunch of drugs. But he was like a cool kid. He wasn't like a burnout kid. He was like an art theater kid. And he said at some point, I don't think he meant to be funny. I think he said as a real statement, cocaine isn't addictive. I do it every day. Which is very funny, like a very funny joke.
Oh, that's very good.
Like, that doesn't do that. I do it all the time. It's fine. I love that joke. I don't think he meant it as a joke when I heard him say it. I think he was literally trying to make a point to normalize cocaine use, but like, it's a really good joke.
That's very good. And Jesse's doing his own rationalization here too. He wants his money, but also, I mean, he's making an appeal for some kind of respect from Walt, right? It's this is supposed to be a partnership.
There's a partnership. I'm clean. And Walt doubts him. Gives him a beaker, says, pee in this. Jesse says, "How gay are you?" Which is weird because I don't think that's a thing that gay dudes do. Like, just speak your pee in parties. Yeah. Like, welcome to the Science Fist Dome here on Fire Island. But he's like, like they sell those drug kits at the store. If you piss clean, you'll get your money.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesse, this calls his bluff.
Right.
Counters him. But Walt says something about, that you just want to hang out and do heroin with your junkie girlfriend.
Yeah.
Walt hates Jane.
Yeah.
Here. Probably, and incorrectly, probably thinks she got him into heroin as opposed to it being more complicated. Him getting her into meth and then her getting him into heroin.
Right.
It was gift of the Magi.
Yeah.
It wasn't,
I mean, and again, the Magnolia chain of events kind of thing. Walt is responsible for her getting back into heroin, to falling off the wagon because he pushed into new territory. So Combo got shot. Yeah,
there is, everyone has a personal responsibility for this, but there are tons of causes that are not excuses.
Yes,
in this.
Yeah,
and Jesse gets pissed and throws the beaker at Walt. It explodes, hits the periodic table, which rolls up.
Nice little comedy beat.
Yeah, it's great. So we cut over. Walt is showing Marie how to put Holly to bed. And Holly is trying to big time because Holly's read about this. Or Marie. Holly's not big timing anything yet.
Yeah.
But Marie is big timing because she's read about this.
Yeah.
A towel will do just fine.
Yeah.
You lay on your side in case you spit up.
Yes. Yeah. You don't want to lay them on their belly because, at least at the time, the idea was that contributed to SIDS. And if you lay her on her back, hint, 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 and they spit up, hint, 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 they will choke. It's no good. So they prop her up with a towel there, and Skylar walks in with tears in her eyes. You think something terrible has happened. She says, "You need to see what your son did."
Yeah. And it turns out Walt comes and looks, and he made this very cute website. And you can read a little bit of it in the background as they scroll down. And it's just like, I love my dad. He's funny. It's like very sweet.
Yeah. Yeah.
God, I love Flynn. And then at the bottom it has the donation link, and like Walt is very impressed by it until he sees that.
Yeah.
And he just says, like, "Son, we can't ask for money." And Skylar's like, "Come on."
Yeah.
Like she holds it together long enough to just be like, "Hey, get out of the room."
Let's talk about this in the hallway. You are not going to upend what your son just did for you.
He worked so hard on this. Like, this is such a beautiful act. You can't make him take that down. Like, what is wrong with you? And he just says, "Skylar, it's charity." I love when Saul says, "Yeah, there's nothing there." Like later, like it's so good. And she's just like, "Why do you say that like it's a dirty word?" His perspective is, again, giving him the benefit of the doubt, which I think is interesting, for a discussion, even if I don't think so. From his perspective, he's a millionaire. He doesn't need to beg for money.
Yeah.
From her perspective, they just had a new kid.
Yeah.
And they're about to be hundreds of thousands of dollars in the hole.
Yeah. They've got, okay, we could buy 5 Subarus or 1 Walt's lung partly gone.
Yes. Yeah. So it's a devastating scene, and again, just this masculine pride.
Yeah.
We cut over to Walt. He's over at Saul's. He's trying to solve this problem.
Yeah.
He's like, "I'm a millionaire. I don't need to do this."
He's doing something which I love when it happens. He's using Saul as a therapist.
Yeah. It's really good.
He's ranting almost in tears, saying, "I've got all this money, but I can't spend it. Everybody thinks I'm bankrupt." Like,
it's ludicrous, and he's, and Saul says, "This is why gangsters had gun malls." MOLL.
Yes.
Walt goes, "What?" He's like, "Oh, you've never seen White Heat?" He's like, I've seen White Heat, but like, I love that they seeded Saul's movie.
Oh yeah, yeah.
This early,
yeah. And Ice Station Zebra Associates, Kim's favorite.
Yeah,
movie.
Exactly. Yeah.
Also, Howard Hughes' favorite movie.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
The idea of a gun mall, a mall is a gangster's side piece. And there's somebody who is more involved in crime. You don't tell your wife about everything, but you can tell your mall.
Yes.
And he's like, "You're not going to have a mall and you can't talk to your wife." And Walt goes, "No." So Saul starts brainstorming, oh, big bag of money by the railroad track, oh, old Uncle Murray, the old pervert used to bounce me on his knee, but, all this stuff. And Walt says, no, it can't be blind luck. I earned that. So it has to seem like I earned it. He's not saying those stories have huge holes in them, which they do.
Yeah.
It's that it doesn't give him credit. Walt doesn't just want to survive and enjoy his beautiful family and his life. He needs the ego.
It needs to be him who provided. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah. And he brings up the website.
Yeah. And how ridiculous this is, just though he built this website, got a PayPal link, it's cyberbegging. That's all it is. Just rattling a little tin cup for the entire world. And Saul's response is, there's no deep seated issues there. I usually don't like it when characters just comment on stuff like that, for the viewer, but like Walt is so loud about this shit that everyone would notice. Yes.
Yeah.
And this is Saul, who's a little on the meta side anyway.
Yes. Yeah. He can get away with this kind of thing.
Yeah. And lesser show would have spent time, I don't know, to do like a Dexter thing, where it's like, right, so like just, this is his dad, who,
we'd see the origins of it. Like his dad, went to I guess they do that in Better Call Saul kind of, but it would be lame in this. It would work worse for Walter.
Yes.
Again, we never meet his mom. We never know anything about his dad. Yeah. It's better just to have a charity hating insecure masculinity void that we can fill in. So Walt says no mystery benefactor, and Saul says no benefactor but benefactors, zombies. I know this hacker in Russia, you can't extradite his fat ass. He can take these things and make other people's computers do his bidding, and they'll make little micro donations to it, and that's how you'll get your money.
Yeah. 20,000 donations for Walter White, cancer saint.
Yeah. And this is twisting the knife. This doesn't answer Walt's problem. It answers one of his problem, but not his personal problem.
Right. Yeah. And it's a good plan.
Yep.
You're just like, I'm like, what's the problem here? I'm seeing the solution right in my face. Yeah.
Yeah. So we cut over a short scene where Jesse and Jane are doing some consolation heroin. Jesse's ranting about how Walt treats him like shit, and Jane's like, I don't understand why you need him. He's like, exactly. That's my point. I don't need him. I taught it. At one point he says, I taught him everything. Not the case. Captain Cook. Jesse does heroin and nods off, and Jane's like, how much does he owe you? And he says $480. And she's like, I'd be mad if someone owed me $500 too. And he's like, no, 480,000. And she props him up on his side, just like Holly.
Yeah. And you can see the wheels turning.
Yep. Yeah. So we cut over. I love this scene so much. So we see, Donald at the Narcotics Anonymous meeting, the Narconon meeting. Jane isn't there. He calls again. She gets up. She's like, I overslept. She throws on her clothes, and as she leaves, he's waiting outside.
Yeah. And he sees her leave Jesse's side of the double. So, lie earlier and also, jigs up.
Yep. He's furious. He breaks in and Jane is begging him to stop. This isn't what it looks like. Please listen to me. Goes in and sees all the drugs on the bed, on the bedside, and sees Jesse. It looks like a heroin den.
Yeah. So he picks him up by the scruff of his neck and starts going to throw him out of the front, like Moe throwing Barney out of the tavern.
Yeah. And he's just like, I'm staying. I pay, he grabs Jesse. Jesse gets thrown on the ground. He picks up a bat. He says, I pay my rent. And like, that's not a good counter to this. Like, you're not allowed to, do heroin, with the landlord's daughter. No. And Donald says, grab your stuff. You're going to rehab, and Jane has been doing this for 15 years. We're going to find out.
She is very experienced at getting out of consequences for this.
Manipulating her father. Yeah. And it, so, she goes into defensive mode. So, he's actually, you don't know him. He's a really good guy. We were just talking about rehab. It's his idea. Donald calls, he's just like, oh, this loser, why do you do this? Like, why would you throw away 18 months? with this loser. And Jesse goes, takes one to know one, which is not the comeback he thinks it is.
No, he probably should have workshopped that one.
Yeah, he did. He was just sleeping the heroin sleep.
Yeah.
Like if I just get woken up and asked to come up with a comeback, I'm not good at it.
Right.
But if I was on heroin,
oh yeah,
I wouldn't come up with anything.
That's a strong negative modifier on that roll there.
Yeah. You have to crit.
And Jane is doing, trying to solve both problems with one, with one statement. We talk about rehab every night. It's his idea. He wants to go, trying to get him off of her back, but also try to gain a little bit of approval because she doesn't just want to keep doing the drugs. She wants to stay with Jesse, her enabler, for doing a lot more drugs.
Yeah. And she has genuine feelings for Jesse as well. It's not just that, but it is that.
Yeah.
And Donald says, okay, I'm going to call the police. Mm-hmm. I've tried 10 years of love and understanding. Maybe you just need to dry out in a jail cell.
Yeah.
Like you'll wish you had rehab, he gets the police on the phone. Somebody's doing drugs in a property I own. And she says, I'll go to rehab tomorrow. And the case she makes, I really like this bit too. She's like, no, I need to call into work and everything. I need to cancel the newspaper and I need to get somebody to watch my plants. Remember last time I went to rehab, all my plants died because you didn't water them. Mm-hmm. That is such a minor little guiltlet.
Yeah.
Tactically deployed. It's like throwing a tiny piece of ceramic at a window. And having it break.
Yeah.
Who cares about these plants, right? But it is just last time you didn't actually take care of me. And say what you will about Donald Margolis in this, but he loves his daughter.
Yeah. I can't speak to the soundness of the plan of having her thrown in jail for this.
I don't know if that's a good idea.
I've never been in that situation. So
I'll tell you what's not a good idea though, is letting somebody wait until the next day to go to rehab.
Probably not. Yeah.
That seems like a real classic bad idea.
Yeah. Usually somebody after the intervention, there's a car waiting for you to take you,
Yeah. Because if you can wait, you're going to rab it, big recommendation. The most recent John Mulaney comedy special is very funny.
Yeah.
And has a lot of relevant detail about this. I know he's mildly canceled for various issues and stuff. And I think it sucks that he let Dave Chappelle do an opening set. I'm not saying that's good. That fucking sucks. It's still funny and it's still an interesting show.
Yeah. It is co-signed.
Yeah. So she begs and he goes, okay, tomorrow we're doing it. And he leaves. And I love this. Jesse's like, did you mean all that? And she goes, I don't know. She was acting it's fucking chilling.
Yeah. Just the way her demeanor kind of changes and her affect kind of flattens.
She's playing him like a fucking fiddle. She knows how to make her dad do what she wants.
Yeah. And, contrast this with later when there is no audience and they are still deluded and talking around rehab as a solution, right? Talking about some kind of plan when everything is solving backwards, from again, the next fix, right?
Yep. And she says, if we had enough money, nobody could make us do anything.
Yeah.
So Walt and Skylar are lying in bed with Holly. The phone rings. They're going to let it go to the machine, but Skylar grabs it. Walt follows and Skylar goes, oh, this is a student asking for a letter of recommendation. The pretty canny cover story. He takes the phone and it turns out it's Jane.
Yes.
And she has no patience for his fake, shit like that. She's like, for God's sake, get somewhere where you can talk,
So he goes out to the pool deck and she says, hey, Walter White, indicating hey, I know everything. And she wants the money and Walt counters, I'll give you the money once Jesse gets clean. I will not contribute to his overdose, which is, at this point it's probably worth underlining. I don't believe that Walt's intent was ever to keep it.
Oh, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
You mean for himself?
Yeah.
No. I believe Walt loves Jesse and does not want him to. This is patronizing.
Yes.
Is the worst thing you can say about it. It's not theft. It's not stealing. He knows what's good for Jesse. And in this case, typically in a TV show, that's not true. When a character does that. In this case, I think it's arguably kind of true.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know how much of my own background I'm bringing with like drugs and stuff like that, but I don't know. I don't have that much respect for people's right to do heroin. I don't know. Like it's a complicated thing, and we're getting into issues and stuff, but I don't know.
Yeah.
If somebody who I loved, like if I think about anybody who I'm close to, if I had their money and they were a heroin addict, I wouldn't give it to them.
Mm-hmm.
Not in a million years. Like I would do the exact same thing Walt was doing.
Yes. Yeah.
So say what you will. If that is disappointing to anybody, or if anybody thinks that's stupid, that's fine. Mm-hmm. But I would not give.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that.
And it also highlights just how much Walt has stepped into this role as a father for Jesse.
Yes.
Then you say it's patronizing. It's also paternalistic, right? Yeah. It is like, I am in this position of responsibility over you. And he doesn't even realize it.
Yeah.
Really, that's what's going on.
Until he has this conversation.
Yeah. Until it's highlighted in the
beautiful
bar.
scene. Yeah. So he's, I'm not going to do that. And Jesse says, you don't have a choice. Like, I will expose you. Mm-hmm. It's going to make, this chemistry teacher starts selling meth. It's going to make a big media story. Do right by Jesse tonight, or I'll burn you to the ground. Really fascinating thing from the podcast. Vince Gilligan thinks that Jane is correct here. She thinks the motivations of Walt are fine, but she's like, yeah, Jesse's a grown man. He can do what I want. Or what he wants. Jane is correct that Walt should do right by Jesse. I was very surprised by that.
Yeah.
And it's just like, maybe there's a libertarian bent going on there that I'm not tuned into.
Yeah. I don't know. That is true. I mean, that is strange to my point of view.
Yeah. It's not how I would interpret the situation. So then Jesse follows Jane outside. They're smoking, and he's unsure about this. He doesn't like it. Like, what if he doesn't pay? She's like, he's not an idiot. He will. And then the other thing is, he's like, we're not going to blow him up.
No,
I'm not the kind of dude who rolls, like, and neither are you. Mm-hmm. Like, he's my partner. And she goes, I'm your partner, and goes inside. It's a devastating line. Yeah. Like,
and man, Aaron Paul's doing a very good job at this. Like,
oh, he's great.
Yeah. And he has started something. He's gotten Jane running, and she is dragging him along like he's fell off of a horse and his foot's caught in the stirrup or whatever. He's kind of crawling at this and can't really meet her eye. Yeah. Yeah.
Walt points it out.
Yeah.
Way to wear the pants. Way to wear the pants. It's, so we cut over Walt watching this nature documentary about elephants. Here's Skylar singing Hush Little Baby, a lullaby. Skylar comes out and goes, learn about elephants. Which is one of my favorite lines in the show.
I like that song. It reminds me of elephants.
So she sends him out to get diapers, and he's deciding what to do. At this point, he didn't really have an excuse to go, but he decides to do it. Yeah. He packs the duffel bag with cash, goes to Jesse's. Jane opens the door and goes for the bag, and he says, no, not you, Jesse. Mm-hmm. And Jesse looks like a dog, that has just been kicked. Mm-hmm. This whole time, he goes for the bag, and Walt doesn't let him have it. Just says, good job wearing the pants.
Yeah.
Again, classic masculinity stuff.
Twist of the knife on Jesse, who is obviously very uncomfortable with this situation, Yeah. And, Jesse grabs the bag, and Walt asks, so how do I know that you're going to stay quiet?
Yeah. And then she says, I'm guessing you don't, because she's still full of this bravado. I love that, reflecting on what we know later. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not the kind of thing you want to say to Walter White, because he'll have you killed. Yeah. It's the last thing you want to say. Uh-huh. And Jesse heads him off. This is before Jesse's scared of Walt.
Right.
But Jesse's just like, you'll never see us again.
Right.
Or we're just going to go.
Yeah. And Walt, tries to tell Jesse, you're not seeing clearly, making a last ditch effort to save his surrogate son. Right. Yeah. And Jane will not let him get any kind of tip of a wedge in here. Yep. Slams the door before Walt can make any kind of a case.
Yep. So Jesse and Jane celebrate. They have this huge stack of money, and we go into kind of a silly mode. here, where they're all really excited. They're like, a lot of jokey jokes.
Yeah.
In this, they're talking about anywhere they can go. They talk about Australia. Jesse says, "Is New Zealand in Australia?" And she says, "New Zealand is in New Zealand," which I like. Yeah. He's like, "Let's go there. I'm going to be a bush pilot, and you can sell your art." Like it's very silly, but they're like, "We have to get clean, for ourselves, not because anyone tells us. We're not going to shoot this down our arm. We should just flush what we have and get started tonight." And they go into the bedroom and they see it, and they're like, "Yeah, we could do that." But heroin feels really good.
Yeah.
What if we did some of that? It feels really good and our brains want it.
Yeah. No, it's, our genetics, previous behavior, the stress of the situation. Yeah. No, lots of stuff makes it so that this is kind of the only way this can go.
Yep. So Walt goes to the bar to get a beer. Greengrass and the High Tides Forever is playing, a song I only know because of Guitar Hero.
Rock band.
Yes.
Yeah. This is very specifically playing because it's a Freebird like song, being played in a bar. You could see that, but also it's about rock stars who died too young. Yeah, which they often do due to heroin. Yeah, specifically the Outlaws talked about Janis, writing about Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix and all this. All people part of the 27 Club. And we're going to find out that Jane, when she passes, currently she is 27 years old. Yeah. Yep.
Walt's phone rings and he lies. Sky was asking where he was. And again, contrasting with Jane's detail lies. So Walt, who is a very good liar, he says, I've been to 3 stores. And then he says, I love this little touch. It's very canny. He's like, all right, do they need to be newborn diapers? Like we could just size up.
Yeah.
He knows the answer to that.
Yeah.
He's not asking a question, but by making her complicit and that's like a next level detail to add to a lie, like asking somebody a question.
Yeah.
Cause they're like, oh yeah, we talked about it.
Yeah.
It's people will believe you if you do this kind of shit.
Yeah.
It's psychopath shit. It's lying. But he's very good at it.
It's called pattern breaking, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it works. It works like a charm.
I love this. Just the idea that there is not a single properly sized diaper. Like there's a newborns convention in town.
It's they're all getting together to make their plans for the year.
It's like bike week, but stroller week.
It's Fleet Week. All these little sailor suits. The town is crawling with Bart Harley Jarvis's Jarvi. Donald is right next to him, well played, he says, and they start making small talk. They're watching on TV the Phoenix Lander finding water on Mars.
Yeah. And they just kind of remark I don't know what to do with this. I don't know how this affects us, but it's there. Like it's big.
Yeah, it's neat.
It's got nothing. Yeah, it's neat. And, and Walt kind of lays out, they think that if, by separating the hydrogen and the oxygen, they can make rocket fuel, which would turn Mars into a big gas station, Yeah. And they're just they're having, like, before they get into explicit dad talk, they're just having dad talk, right? They're bullshitting at a bar. Yeah.
It's interesting because they can't talk to each other, or they don't have anyone to talk to, rather. Or at least Walt doesn't. Like, who is Walt going to talk to about Jesse?
No one.
No one. Like this is a boon.
Or a stranger at a bar.
Yeah. Like this is the only possible out for that. It is a weird coincidence. That it happens, but in the cosmicism kind of milieu of season 2, I'll allow it. Like, I think it's a really beautiful scene. So it's good.
And it's carried on the back of these two, just the 2 amazing performances, right?
Yeah. And it does stuff for Walt's character that I like, as team Walt and Jesse love each other.
Yeah.
There's a good quote from Vince Gilligan in the podcast where he's like, coincidences are only bad when good things happen to your characters. Like they're great if a bad thing happens, and I was like, yeah, that's basically true. Like a coincidence will only really bother me if a character lucks out, but if something bad happens, that's great. That's just good dungeon mastering.
Yeah. And we should make it clear. He does not know that this guy is the mother of, the biggest pain in his ass right now.
Yeah. No,
is the father.
Idea. Yeah. So they ask, Donald picks up that he had a child because of the diapers, if a girl or boy. Donald says, he has a 27-year-old daughter, and Walt talks about Flynn very admiringly, you know?
And he even like mentions the website as this. Does he mention the website? Yeah.
No, he says, he's even changing diapers.
Yeah.
He says that. I don't know if he brings up.
Yeah, because that was like
notable PayPal account.
Yeah,
I have a son with a PayPal.
Oh, I saw that in the paper.
Yeah, he owns a factory downtown and he has a PayPal.
But just it talks with genuine pride about his son, right?
Yeah, he asks if he has any advice about a daughter, and Donald says no. I love this. He's like, no, just love them. They are who they are.
Yeah,
you can try to control them, but you can't. And Walt brings up Jesse as his nephew. And he's like, I get that. You can't infantilize them. You can't live your life for them. There's this frustration. You do know what's better for them.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love this exchange so much. Like Walt says, what do you do with someone like that? And Donald goes, family? He goes, yeah, family. Like, yeah, because that is what they are. You go through enough stuff together and that is family.
Yeah. And Donald says, I mean, you can't give up on them ever. I mean, what else is there? Which is an amazing sentiment that if Donald never said that, his daughter would not have died.
Yeah. Well, his daughter would have died.
Well, I mean, in
New Zealand of an overdose.
Yes, there we go. Would not have died tonight. There we are. Yes. You're right. I was imprecise.
Because I think it is. I think there's an argument to be made for the morality of Walt's action in the next scene.
Oh yeah. No, they were totally going to die. Given the coping skills that they had shown, there was no way that they were. Yeah.
Oh yeah. They were going to flee. So Walt takes this, he's like, okay, Jesse's family. He pulls into Jesse's place. Nobody answers the door. So he lets himself in. He sees Jesse and Jane on the bed, and he just wants to talk to Jesse. He starts trying to wake him up by shaking him. And this jostles Jane to fall on her back.
Right.
And she pulls a Holly. She vomits and starts choking. It's really gross and unnerving. It's very visceral.
Yeah, just the convulsion that happens there, when she is unable to right herself and is just losing her breath and getting more and more panicked. And Walt goes to turn her over. Like he reaches for her.
His instincts.
And then he stops himself and you can see the calculations going on in his head. And we should probably talk about what these calculations are
like ultimately the end result of this is letting her die.
Yes.
He's not strictly killing her. We can get in all kinds of trolley problem shit. But he's letting her die.
Yes.
He didn't knock her on her back on purpose.
Yeah. If they were just asleep and he had jostled Jesse and she fell back, probably wouldn't have happened if they were not on drugs. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
not saying Jane is.
I sleep on my back all the time,
right?
And I don't choke to death,
right?
So he does this. It's very upsetting to him. So when you talk about the stakes, you have the utilitarian thing that he's doing, not morally, just this gets rid of his problem.
Yes,
she's blackmailing him, but that's not why he's doing it. Right. He didn't come here to fight Jane.
No,
he came here to save his nephew. Like to save his son. And in his mind, she is what's doing this to him. There's a lot of layers to this. Like you can make that argument. You could also, he's a grown man. He can do whatever he wants. There's also an element where Walt is, without Jane in the picture, he will be able to manipulate Jesse. Like he'll be able to talk to him.
Yes.
And Walt, if anything, believes in the power of his own voice, right? Like I can convince him. I can fix him.
Yeah. And if you are being as uncharitable to Walt as possible, you could say he understands that this might be the trauma that gets Jesse clean. Yes. Just like, okay, do you see what happens?
Like as uncharitable as possible would be like, this might be the trauma that gets Jesse clean so we can still cook more, or so, but it's ultimately in a weird way, kind of altruistic, not altruistic, but it's to save a life.
Yes.
That is why he came. I believe that is his intent. He's letting somebody die, who is innocent. It's not Emilio who is going to kill him.
Yeah.
It's a much harder situation. It's an escalation,
Mhm.
but he's doing it to save Jesse.
Yes.
And we don't know the future. What would have happened if they went to New Zealand and he became a bush pilot? Maybe that would have been a fun, like Tailspin-esque kind of spinoff,
Yeah.
But I bet, things don't end well for people who do heroin.
Yeah, and,
who are
just
young.
looking at it from a risk, like a risk assessment kind of thing. Actuarially, I'm not placing a lot of bets on their longevity if this goes through. There's probably another way to do this that does not involve a life for a life.
Yeah, it would be grabbing him, carrying him, and forcing him to go to rehab or whatever.
Yeah,
while she's taking the money.
Yeah,
because he has them like they're sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
He could just take the money.
Yeah,
they would think they got robbed.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows what would happen then? But like, there are other things that they could do. But it was this fell into his lap.
This is, and that was the point that I was going to get to. This is an opportunity that ultimately landed on him that he is not going to not take. Right.
Yes.
And Walt is a consummate opportunist.
Yeah. A lot of his successes have to do with being in the right place at the right time.
Yes.
With this sort of thing. On the other hand, he let somebody die.
Mm-hmm.
That's not good.
No.
And it was, a young person.
Mm-hmm.
And the innocence of Jane is arguable.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But Jane didn't do anything to him that isn't true. Like, she threatened to expose him for things he actually did.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a good thing.
Yeah,
to let Jane die.
It's and it also gets into the complicated complicated discussion of a person's culpability for what they do while they're under the influence of substances during an addiction, or their for lack of a better word, junkie behavior when they're in the throes of an addiction, where they are still responsible, but it changes the explanation calculus, I guess.
Yeah, it's a more complicated thing for sure.
Yeah.
Like it's you're always responsible for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
In those kind of scenarios, like you chose to do heroin,
mm-hmm.
right? Like you may have like a lot of mitigating factors, and it might be an understandable choice, but like ultimately, with outside of taken situations, like you're making the choice.
Yeah. And you chose to blackmail this person because you couldn't have gotten clean for a little bit and then gotten the money and then, went and achieved the independence that you want. Right.
Yes.
It's addict behavior, to my understanding, is often very short-term oriented. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a really interesting moral conundrum. I think it is a lot more complicated than people give this scene credit for.
Yeah.
I think that there is, when people who cannot get into Breaking Bad,
mm-hmm.
who cannot get into it because they don't want to spend time with an irredeemable character,
mm-hmm.
will bring up this as the event horizon, where Walt did his darkest thing. And became, this is the point of no return. I don't think so. I think him doing this for a fairly strong argument
mm-hmm.
to save somebody he loves is not by any means his darkest moment.
Yeah.
Like there's so much worse in store.
This does not in the moment read as a petty decision, even if he does have this grudge against Jane for, fairly rapidly leading his, surrogate adopted whatever son astray. Right.
And for being a real jerk to him and blackmailing him.
Oh yeah.
And like, that's part of where, again, her being as unlikable as she is in this episode,
mm-hmm.
I think is maybe tuned
a
little bit to make it not as like to make that side of the argument a little weaker.
Mm-hmm.
That she's just an innocent. Like if they wanted that to be, this was just a horrible, horrible thing to do, hands down, black and white.
Yeah.
No matter what, they maybe wouldn't have tuned it. Quite so aggro.
And just because I'm anticipating some folks, when we say like he has a strong argument in this, we are not saying it is behavior that should be replicated. Like, oh, if you're in this situation, make the same play every time.
Don't get in this situation.
Yeah. Try not to.
It's we're so far along at this point that like it's very easy to think of this choice in a vacuum.
Yeah.
And go to a very simple principle where it's just like, you don't let somebody die. Somebody's dying, you save them. And like, that is true, but that's not, we have this entire context spreading out behind us that led us to this. It is not, I don't think it's controversial to say that like mitigating circumstances tend to affect our moral absolutes. Like moral absolutes are kind of a fake thing. And like the obviously the basic example of that is like you kill people and you don't kill people, but you do it in war. That's a difference. That's a context.
Yes.
When you throw a context onto something, I think it can change the moral calculus.
Wow, man, I can't believe you just said war was good.
I fucking love it, dude.
That's so
just
good.
Just call it like speaking of dads, I got this 7-set VHS thing about Patton I'm going to watch later. Just looking at it in general and be like, God, that guy's fucking craggy and cool. Yeah. And so the other thing I want to say before heading anybody off is I'm not, when you're saying like, just do this 10 times out of 10, not an uncomplicated good. This is a gray area. It's a thing where like, I think it's up to any individual to decide how they feel about it.
Yeah.
I don't think that this is a slam dunk, but I just don't think it's a slam dunk in either direction personally.
And because Jane and Jesse had taken this to such a crisis with their own kind of short-term thinking, like this is not a real solution to the problem at hand, right? Like, because this breaks Jesse, we're going to spend most of season 3 exploring the fallout and consequences of this.
Yes, it is ultimately not for the best in the moment. I can see the motivation behind it. If you feel differently about that, write in, like when we do our response thing, be nice. I don't want anyone to call me a monster because I don't hate Jane. I don't think people should die because they're addicted to drugs.
No.
Or anything like that by any means. I hope that comes through. I just think it again, you can do something to save somebody who you love.
Yeah.
That is a motivation that I think is complicated, at worst.
Yeah.
So, and he starts crying. This is a very famous thing from Bryan Cranston. It's the intro to his book. He talks about this scene. These are real tears. It's not actor tears. He was thinking about his own daughter. This really got to him here. The other two things that complicate this is like, as much as this is a morally complicated act, telling Jesse later, not morally complicated.
No,
that's just pure spite and evil, but that's full on shit, Walt. Second, in the original cut of the script, he was going to give her extra heroin.
Yeah. No, he was going to push her over the edge. Yeah.
Yep. And that would have been very different to me. That changes the morality.
Very much so. Yeah.
Letting someone die is different than killing somebody, I think. I don't think it's the equivalent.
Yeah.
In the scenario.
Different shades or spins at the very least. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It matters. Like it's a somewhat nuanced thing. It's also incredibly cartoonish. It reminds me of the rice and juice box that they talked about, and like they never really revealed it, but like all the ideas they had for it were really fucking silly and super villainish. I'm glad they didn't do it.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And I don't know. This is such a better decision because it's still a moment that is talked about. Like, it keeps the morality and ethics of this show, complex, right? Or at least, let's say complicatable. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's interesting, complicated, worth talking about, nuanced.
Yeah.
And it's what I go to this, one of the big things I go to the show for. Like, I think that kind of stuff is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good episode.
Yeah. Great episode. Next episode, also really good.
We're so close to Mike. We're so close to getting a mic.
We get Mike next episode. Hooray.
Yay.
And just an amazing scene.
Yeah.
That scene, a lot of great scenes in the next episode. And the plane shit, so we'll get to all that. And then season 3, which I think most people tend to think that the series is at its stride in season 3.
Yeah.
Season 3 and 4. I would say so. That is the most. This stuff is all very great and the kind of grounded scale, but like once we start getting Walt versus Gus stuff,
oh yeah,
like that's incredibly intoxicating and cool.
Yeah.
So thanks everybody for listening. We appreciate you.
thank you. If you would like to support us, you can go to patreon.com/duckfeed.tv and get cool stuff like whole bonus shows. Lots of bonus content at the $5 tier there.
Yeah, we enjoy giving bonus stuff out for very low prices. You can also leave ratings reviews on Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict, anywhere podcasts are sold. You can also tell your friends. We'd appreciate that. People doing Breaking Bad rewatches all the time because it's good. Maybe they'd like to go with us.
Yeah. I think that's about everything. If
big
you
thanks to Gwen.
Yes, big thanks to Gwen, our producer, who we appreciate very much.
Very much.
Yeah. And until next time, if you're putting an intoxicated person to bed, definitely make sure that there's something behind them.
Yeah. Further, I know I say this all the time. Don't do heroin.
Yeah, needle drugs, no good.
Yeah, needle drugs, the heavy drugs, the big addicted drugs that kill you.
Yeah.
I don't know. You could just not. I don't know. Like I understand people have rough lives, and sometimes that leads to that kind of heavy drug use. But that shit's scary. Get help if you can.
Please.
Yeah. No.